Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Muffin. Needed you here today. Thank you so much. I mean, you're always here, but thank you particularly for today. Hey, Sarah. Hi, G. Hey, Jody. Hi, Megan. Hey, Turtle. How are you? Snappy Shell. Hey, Shelly. Finally, I see you, right? Hey, Winnie. What's going on, Charlotte? Hey, Sean. What's up, Upala? Hey, Andrew. How are you? How are you? Thank you so much for joining this evening. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Let me start off as I always do. I'm sorry. Welcome. Whew, hey, Howie. Hey, Janelle. Welcome to 30 at 8:30, special edition. Many of you who joined us last week, hey, Sarah Kay, many of you who joined us last week heard me say that we were going to take a little hiatus and we would be back with more meaningful, powerful content for season 2. However, I thought that it was imperative that this evening we gather together. We yet again hold the space for one another in this special edition of 3830 to talk about the things that have been going on in our world today. Strike that, not today, not just today. To talk about the things that have been going on in our world for centuries. I don't need to say that I understand that the murder of George Floyd sparked, elevated, ignited this long overdue, continued conversation. But it is an atrocity. It is a deplorable systemic issue of policing and brutally murdering Black bodies that has been going on for too long. I have not responded to friends and family who've texted to make sure I'm okay. And I haven't made a statement on behalf of the CRIB, the Center for Research and Innovation for Black Survivors of Homicide Victims, that brings you 30 at 8:30 every Wednesday night. Because I didn't have the words. I realized I probably did myself a disservice Wednesday night by speaking about the murder of George Floyd, but not being in check with my emotions and helping to hold the space for the emotions of the CRIB community. And so here it is. I am not okay. I'm not okay. When you call me and say, how you doing? I need you to know I'm not okay first. Second, I need you to know that we as Black people are not okay. We're not okay. Your friends, your colleagues, your sisters, your brothers in struggle and strife, we are not okay. Third, I need you to understand that I'm not okay, and we're not okay, because this is not, nor has it ever been, okay. These words may sound very simple to you, but through a series of personal self-reflection, my own personal journey with the impact of structural racism on me and those that I care about, has helped me to understand that we spend a great deal of time as Black people explaining away our emotions, suppressing them often to hold a professional and personal stance, stuffing them, if you will, because the brutal understanding of what's going on is almost too overwhelming to bear. I'm not going to do that anymore. I encourage those of you watching not to do that anymore. To tell people when you are not okay, that you're just not okay. And that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to demand your space. It's okay to demand that space is held for you. It's okay to replenish your well first. The next thing I wanted to say is this. The work that I do regarding the impact of homicide violence on Black survivors of homicide victims is not just work for me. It is a calling. For every mother, every child, every son, every daughter, every sister, every brother, every cousin that I've come across who has privileged me with their stories of survivorship and their pain, I thank you because I see them as gifts. They have been the precipice of what fed, what fueled the development, the founding of the Center for Research and Innovation for Black survivors of homicide victims. We're a center that's dedicated to uplifting those voices of so many who feel voiceless, elevating and creating culturally responsive approaches to research, policy, and practice for and with them. But these past days, it occurred to me that as I, in my work, talk about what happens to individuals and communities after over and over and over again, seeing the brutal murder of your own people that look like you, it does something to you, to us. And so what I want us to understand is the impact, the toll it takes, not just on individuals, but an entire community. This is why we were resolutely firm and talking about the fact that we are here to uplift voices of individuals, Black survivors of homicide victims throughout our global community. Because what I realized is that George Floyd's family members and community members are definitely survivors of homicide victimization. But we are. We are the entire Black global community of survivors of homicide victims. If we don't take the time to hold the space for an entire global community of Black people that repeatedly experiences the annihilation of them, we are not on our watch. We're not doing our job. So I want us to think beyond how we feel individually, how we feel as a family, and understand, we've said this over and over again on 38-830, that under COVID-19, it's taught us that we are inherently dependent upon each other for each other's survival. Yeah, that's been happening to the backdrop of people being murdered. And so the same framework that we used for COVID-19 to collectively come together, to understand, I want us to use that same framework. In my work, I talk about the worldview, if you will. The worldview of Black survivors of homicide victims. When we wake up, we recognize that as Black people living in a racist society, that we anticipate that we will experience the atrocities that happened to George Floyd. When we wake up, we anticipate that someone is going to follow us around the mall. We anticipate that somebody is going to question our credentials. We train our Black boys at a very young age when they're walking to not wear a hoodie, to put their hands on steering wheels, because we anticipate that there is going to be some sort of assault on our bodies. We wake up every day with this collective cultural trauma every day. Before we even make our coffee, take a train, plane, automobile, subway to work. But then for homicide survivors, in addition to that cultural trauma that happens as a result of historical and current experiences of racism and oppression, then a homicide occurs. And we enter into a culture of homicide that is altogether unique. A culture of homicide where shame, blame, stigma, lack of justice are most paramount. Stigma, because the assumption when a Black person is murdered is, were they dealing drugs? Was there gang activity? What illegal activity happened? Were they in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time? That's the first. Lack of justice, if the murder isn't solved. If we don't see inspectors like Stacy Clark taking a knee in solidarity with so many survivors. Shame, blame, stigma, lack of justice, these are all components of a culture of homicide that survivors of homicide victims enter to. When you combine the understanding of cultural trauma and the understanding of culture of homicide together, when you understand that you have communities who over and over and again on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and often personal experiences, see the utter erasure of them. You have what people have referred to in many different ways. Trauma, traumatic grief. And when you think about the fact that that has gone unchecked, unnoticed, unacknowledged for centuries, for decades, over and over again, what you are seeing, ladies and gentlemen, and let's not just talk about what happened with George Floyd this week. Let's talk about what happened in Baltimore, Maryland with the murder of Freddie Gray. Let's talk about it when we talked about it in Ferguson. Let's talk about it when we talked about indigenous communities being struck with bullets to protect their land. When this continued annihilation happens, it does something to not only your psyche, but your spirit and your soul. And in my work, I talk about the fact that as a result of this, both traumas, if you will, interacting with one another, that we appraise systems, people. We look at people and say, are you there to help me or are you there to hurt me? Are you there to help me or are you there to further stigmatize me? Will you lift your voice when my voice is voiceless? How far are you willing to go? Because you say you care, but what is that? What does that look like? Because everything else around me that I'm seeing doesn't look like, it doesn't feel like you care about my life. When that happens and with that understanding, oftentimes people rely, Black survivors of homicide or victims will rely on coping strategies, collective coping and caring for one another, maintaining a connection to the deceased. You see decals, you see stickers, you see tattoos, you see the corners with teddy bears and balloons and candles and vigils. Spiritual coping and meaning making. These are all things that Black folk utilize to cope. But today, I need to I need you to understand that in the middle of COVID-19, where we're supposed to be social distancing, Dr. Sean McGuffey alluded to the fact that it is literally taking away one of the main sources of support that we gather together. We rely on collective coping and caring for sustenance. And so that makes things hard for the survival of COVID-19, for these two epidemics, if you will, that we are going through. The continued brutal homicide and murder of us, and the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on our communities. So imagine, just imagine if you will, all of this is going on. Where does the grief go? Several researchers refer to it as complicated grief, right? It's complicated. There's a lot going on. It's complicated. Some refer to it as disenfranchised grief because we're not allowed to even grieve and support one another, right? So what happens to that grief, that trauma, that anger, and let's be honest, rage? Because I was very clear that I wasn't able to talk and speak because wasn't just angry, wasn't just sad. I was enraged. And I need to be okay saying that too. But I digress. When we think about these coping strategies that we can't rely upon, what we are seeing is the outcry. The outcry of centuries of grief, centuries of unchecked, unnoticed, unacknowledged issues of social justice. And if I dare say, rage, anger, because how many times does this have to happen? How many times? Some people are saying that calling the protesters thugs, looters. And I in no way condone violence. But I need for us to make a couple things clear. We can't pick and choose when we're going to chastise and call people names when we talk about looting. We can't pick and choose. Because if we roll back, if we pull those receipts, we know that this is true. That the land that we're standing on was looted. It was robbed. That we as Black people were looted from our own homeland. So we really have to think clearly and critically about when we are pointing fingers and when we are going to pick and choose to call thing a thing. I am not okay. We are not okay. But I've learned a few things. Been around the block a couple times. I've experienced some pain and some joy. And in those darkest of times, in one of my most dark times when my mother passed, I played this song over and over again. And the words, one of the verses to the song was, "We fall down, but we get up." I have to believe that I have fallen down, we have fallen down, but we will get up. We will get up. But in order for us to get up, in order for us to rise to that occasion, I need, particularly for those who have been checking on me and asking if I'm okay and wanting to tell me that they love me. I need you to do something else. Because I'm tired. We're tired. And we can get up, but we shouldn't have to do it by ourselves. In preparation for my comments, and I usually write things down, but it came to me about 5 minutes before I got on air, which took me so long to get here because I had to jot it down when it just popped into my head. George Floyd had a knee on his neck, suffocating him, drawing the life out of him for exactly 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Let's round it up, shall we? Let's round up to 9. 9 minutes. In order for us to get back up, I want to ask my friends, those of you who've checked on me, those of you who hesitated to check on me, those of you who haven't known what to say, I want to ask a couple of things of you. Encourage those who are new to understanding racism, white supremacy. Encourage them to Google, to look up a podcast. Encourage them to understand so they can elevate their minds, their knowledge, and understanding of the systemic nature of this thing. Now's not the time necessarily to come to one of us, but a simple Google, a simple sharing of information will be really helpful. Second, I want to encourage you because I understand that for this instance, and I want to make reference because this is not just about George Floyd. We need to remember him and uplift him, but it's not just about George Floyd. It's about every Black body that has been murdered brutally. Those who have appeared on TV news and cameras, and those who have appeared in Section D of our newspapers. I invite you to call and write to your local and national government representatives. Ask about implementing anti-Black racist policies into the delivery of mental and medical health services, education, and our criminal justice system. Not just one phone call. Keep the letters coming, keep the phone calls coming. Because this will not change without systemic policy change. And again, I'm not okay. We're not okay. This is not okay. And it won't be okay without your assistance. It is beyond allyship. I need some accomplices. I need some accomplices that are going to come and uplift this into the discussion so that we can have real systemic change. The last thing I want to ask of you, eight minutes. 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I'm gonna round it up to 9. And I'm gonna ask of you that you identify 9 people in your circle Nine people in your circle who you know not gonna want to have this conversation. They're not seeing the way that I know, I trust and believe our crib community is seeing things. And have that difficult conversation, that gut-wrenching, uncomfortable, in the belly conversation. Because until we elevate our understanding, until we have policy and systemic changes, I shudder to think about the next human being whose life is snuffed out in 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I thank you for listening. I thank you for your patience in me finding my voice. The Center for Research and Innovation for Black Survivors of Homicide Victims, the CRIB, was founded and uplifted because of the nature of this. But one of the things that I know to be true about the CRIB is that the CRIB has never been, nor will it ever be, one person's vision, one person's research agenda. It is a collective of interdisciplinary scholars and community members who are out on the front lines every day, being of service to survivors of homicide victims. Together as a collective, a global collective, we may fall down, but we can get back up. I know this. I have seen it in the eyes of our global community research network partners, and I've certainly seen it in the passion and commitment that my staff brings to this vision every day. Shout out to Dominique Smith, Trevon Edwards, Janelle Anderson, Megan McPoland, Sarah Power, and Allison Gray. Staff at the CRIB who held the space for me this week when I couldn't hold it together. Helped me to find my voice. But we can't do this alone. I need you. I need you, my friends who've texted, who've called, who have been at a loss of what to do. Call your government officials. 9 people. Have those difficult conversations with 9 people in your life, in your circle. I don't know. I think that's it. Thank you for listening to this special edition of 30 at 8:30. We are going to go on hiatus to really reset, to bring more critical content, to candid conversations front and center. So again, from our crib to yours, please stay safe and keep well.